Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything: geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find the show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, which is PorkinsPolicyReview.com. And you can, of course, subscribe to the show through RSS, through email blasts, on YouTube and iTunes, and soon to be some more podcatchers. Just bear with me. I know I sound like a broken record with that. And of course, if you want to support my work, like a good friend of the show, Chuck Ocelli, who just became a subscriber, you can always go on to Patreon, patreon.com/Pierce Redmond, and you can become a subscriber for as little as $1 a month. So thank you, Chuck Ocelli, for just the other day signing up for Patreon. And if any of Chuck's listeners are listening out there, I'm also a subscriber of Chuck's, and if any of my listeners want to support Chuck, he's got a Patreon as well. And perhaps even more importantly, if you really want to support all the work I do and stuff, and you can help out, then please do help out by subscribing or donating to American Freedom Radio. And there are multiple ways to do that. You can either, you can give a one-time donation on PayPal, you can become a monthly donator on PayPal, or you can also sign up for American Freedom Radio's Patreon. And I'll have that linked up in the show notes. I linked up to it last week on the episode, but I'll link up to it again. And any little bit helps, I always tell people, if everybody that listened to me, gave just $1 a month, I mean, boy, things would be very different. But, of course that doesn't always happen, the way you want it. But anyway, thank you, to everybody who does, subscribe or donate. It's just gonna be me today on the show. I think it's been a little while since I've done a completely solo show, but it is a pretty jam-packed show. We're going to be getting into some interesting geopolitical topics. But before I get into that, and this is sort of related to today's show, I know that there are a lot of people out there who email me constantly and bug me about Porkins' great game. Again, I know I sound a bit like a broken record. It will be back. Christoph and I, we still talk. I know that, the people asking, did we get into a fight? Or saying that, I'm too consumed with this show to do Porkins' great game, or something has happened. It's not true, okay? I don't know how many times I can reiterate this and say this. I feel for George R. R. Martin, who's of course the author of A Song of Ice and Fire, the novel series that Game of Thrones is, I guess now loosely based on. Because Martin is constantly inundated with these, when are you going to finish the books? When are you going to finish the books? Listen, it's going to happen when it happens, okay? Christoph and I want to get back into the show, so just stop bugging both of us about this. You'll know when the show comes back. It has been on an extended hiatus, obviously, but there's a lot of, different things going on, reasons why we can't, find the time to record everything, but we will. So sort of in lieu of that, I thought today we could sort of do a strictly geopolitical show. I was gonna kind of make this into a bit of a sort of a Porkins' great game type show and, cover mainly Central Asia stuff, but I couldn't really find anything that I absolutely wanted to cover, vis-a-vis Central Asia. Central Asia's been a kind of quiet, these past couple of months in the summer. Not too much has been obviously there's stuff going on and maybe we'll mention it a little bit later, but I did want to just sort of talk strictly geopolitics today. And we will be kind of we're going to be covering topics that we do cover on Porkins' Great Game, but we're going to be talking mainly about Afghanistan and Pakistan, two very important strategic countries for the United States and for NATO, and two countries that I have a particular affinity for. As I've mentioned before on the show, one of my main focuses when I studied political science was on South Asia. And mainly Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan in particular. But as of late, it seems as if everyone has been very consumed with the various scandals facing Washington, mainly the Trump-Russia scandals. I think just today I saw that Jared Kushner spent something like 3 hours, I think it was, being grilled by the Senate Intelligence Committee. Obviously, I'm guilty of sort of continually going back to this. Last week, obviously, we spoke about the various Russian scandals with J.P. Satili and with Robbie Martin. And then, on the flip side of that, there's the continuous ongoing coverage of Hillary Clinton. Every week there's a new person who Hillary Clinton has bumped off, ordered the assassination of. And some of these, I don't know if you even want to call them theories, are becoming just, completely, outlandish. And then, of course, we have these sort of scandals, that they keep getting dredged up, like Pizzagate, Pedogate, the deep state in charge of everything, which is really code for Hillary Clinton and Obama. But these scandals kind of, as I said, they sort of consume all of the media, and I'm using the term media to mean mainstream, alternative, independent, whatever, right wing, left wing. Much of this media is consumed by this. And I think that the Trump-Russia stuff kind of supersedes all of that, because everybody's got a dog in that fight. Everybody has some opinion, and we find ourselves kind of obsessed with it to a large degree. And as I said, I'm guilty of this as well. And it sort of detracts from the many, many geopolitical conflicts and situations and events that are going on all over the globe right now. And I think it's very easy for us to become a bit complacent when it comes to these geopolitical events. We tend to sort of forget about them. And again, I'm guilty of this as well. It's been quite some time since we've just done a show talking, some real straight geopolitics, news. And, I think there's, especially with the Trump administration, which ran on this, I think, phony, campaign promise of getting out of the wars and minding our own business, America first, all of that kind of crap. Many of the Trump supporters and the Trump detractors have sort of closed themselves off from the stuff that's going on around the world. And this is scary and stupid for a variety of reasons. But I think particularly what's going on in Afghanistan and in Pakistan are not only going to have effects all over, worldwide and definitely in the region. I think, South Asia is about to be faced with some serious problems, which will trickle out to that region, touching everyone from the Chinese to the Russians, the Indians, Central Asians, of course, eventually in Europe, America. It is going to trickle out everywhere, but it's going to have a big impact on Donald Trump and his administration. And this is an administration that seems wholly unprepared for any serious geopolitical challenge. And, we've got these reports that Rex Tillerson is thinking about resigning. And these were floated and, and sort of, is rumor, and now it's becoming, there was I think it was a CNN report, and then The Hill picked it up. Rex Tillerson is so sort of, irritated and bummed out by, again, the sort of, he says one thing, Donald Trump says another, that he's looking to resign. And Trump seems to have no policy or stance or opinions on anything geopolitical. So this, of course, opens up the question of, well, what happens when a geopolitical crisis or event or moment happens? How does the Trump administration deal with it? And so I guess let's actually take a look and examine two things which I think, as I said, are going to have a big impact globally, but specifically with the U.S. because we're so intertwined with both Afghanistan and Pakistan. So, as I was speaking about last week, and also there'll be an episode of Media Roots Radio where I was speaking with Robbie Martin about this. But we do have these plans or this vision to privatize the entire war in Afghanistan, and essentially to privatize the country with DynCorp and Blackwater. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But just keep that sort of in the background. Keep that, in your mind while we're discussing this. And I'm sorry if you're hearing some sort of ringing in the background. I don't know what that is. Someone's robbing a bank or something in my neighborhood if you're hearing that. But anyway, we've got a major political crisis unfolding right now in Afghanistan, which is actually reaching quite a boiling point. Now, people might be familiar, again, if you listen to Porkins' Great Game, but the current vice president, Abdul Rashid Dostum, former warlord, me and Christoph's favorite warlord come vice president, has not been in the country since May of this year after he left ostensibly for medical treatment in Turkey. Now prior to this, he had been under essentially de facto house arrest in Afghanistan, and then left in May for Turkey, and he has not returned since. Now, this is not really about medical treatment. That is on the face of it, that is what's being told. But the real reason dates all the way back to November 2016, when Abdul Rashid Dostum was alleged to have abducted a political rival, beat him, and then had him raped, and then handed him over to the NDS, which is the Afghan intelligence, the Afghan CIA. Now, this political rival is Ahmed Ishchi, who is a former governor of Jozan province, which is in the north. And Dostum is, of course, also from the north. He's an ethnic Uzbek. And Dostum is also from Jozan province. Quick little background. I mean, Dostum goes way back. He, fought in the Mujahideen, then later fought with the Northern Alliance. Dostum is, in many ways a huge power broker, if not one of the major power brokers in Afghanistan. And the only real reason that President Ghani was elected president of Afghanistan was because Dostum was backing him as his VP. Now, back to this sort of scandal. I say, alleged abduction, sort of almost in air quotes, because this actually took place in broad daylight, and multiple witnesses saw Dostum abduct Ishchi. Now, this was at a Buzkashi match, and Buzkashi is sort of like polo, except it's with like a goat's head instead of a polo ball. And I think people will have seen pictures and things of these sorts of matches. But anyway, this was a match. I believe it was somewhere in the north. You can check in the show notes for this. But multiple witnesses saw Dostum approach Ishchi, beat him, kick him, knocked him down at one point, put his boot on his throat. Then his bodyguards took him, threw him in the back of a car, and they drove off. Now, according to Ishchi, he was then held for 5 days in Dostum's house, where he was beaten and then at Dostum's orders was raped with the barrel of a rifle. Then Dostum dropped him, or his bodyguards had him dropped off either at a police station or some sort of NDS safe house or office building, where he was held for another 10 days by the NDS and was then subsequently released, at which point he went to international media and Afghan media and started talking about this abduction. Now, Dostum's office is claimed, with really not a whole lot of evidence, that the reason Ishchi was being held by the NDS for so long was because of links to the Taliban, and there were supposedly intercepted phone messages or something like that of Ishchi talking with the Taliban. It may be true. It almost kind of really doesn't matter, because Dostum definitely did beat this man in public and then abduct him, and then hold him for at least 5 days. Now, formal charges were actually brought against Dostum by the Attorney General of Afghanistan, Mohammad Farid Hamidi, who is newly appointed by President Ghani, with this mandate to clean up the Afghan political system, to sort of stamp out corruption, and to some extent he did. He did go after a lot of people. The formal charges were brought, as I said, against Dostum and against his bodyguards involved in the arrest. Then they tried to arrest the bodyguards and they couldn't find them, or the bodyguards refused to be turned over. This sort of progresses. At one point, Dostum is, as I said, is under sort of house arrest. All the while, he's still technically the vice president. He doesn't go to many of these, meetings and political gatherings in places like Kabul, but, his chair is still there, and he is vice president. Dostum, under the guise of seeking medical treatment, goes and flies to Ankara, which is where Dostum, that was his sort of base of operations, the last time he, in the mid-90s when the Taliban came to power. Now, while he's in Ankara, he's also sort of formed a political alliance with his Afghan ally Atta Noor, who is the equally powerful, extremely wealthy governor of Balkh province, which is also in the north, right next to Jazan province. Noor is a Tajik, ethnic Tajik. He was, again, very well connected. He was a member, or he was founder rather, but he was a very powerful leader in, Jamaat-e-Islami, which was a very powerful, fighting group that, again, was part of the Mujahideen and then later part of the Northern Alliance. And Noor and Dostum have sort of, as I said, on again, off again friends. They've been enemies and they become friends again. But they formed this sort of new political alliance, along with another individual who I'm who is the Deputy Chief Executive Officer, Mohammad Mohik. I'm sure I'm butchering that. Who was a former vice president. So the deputy chief executive officer is, sort of think of it as like, a sort of a new it's sort of like I don't know how to describe it. So Afghanistan now has a president, and then they also have a vice president, and then they also have this thing called the CEO, chief executive officer, which is sort of like it is a made up position. The person who who is the CEO is Abdul, who ran against President Ghani, for president. And basically the vote was so close and so corrupt, they had to create the CEO of Afghanistan in order to placate, all these people. But anyway, the three of them have formed this very powerful political alliance. While Dostum is, in Ankara, sort of in hiding. And then on July 18th, hundreds of supporters gathered in an airport in the city of Mazar-e-Sharif, which is in Balkh province. Balkh province. And they were essentially waiting for General Dostum to land. There were reports that Dostum was leaving Turkey, that he was going to fly to Afghanistan. He was going to, arrive in Balkh province, along with Noor and Mahik and, all these people. And he was going to, I guess, sort of make his stand or something like that. But this never really happened. There were rumors that that Kabul would not allow the plane to land. That instead it was turned around and had to go to Ashgabat in Turkmenistan, the capital. And this was what was being put out there initially by Noor and Dostum, or specifically by Mohammad Atta Noor. And again, this is, Kabul is afraid and they don't want this to happen, so they, threatened to, blow up the plane, or they wouldn't let it land. And then a day after that, those initial reports, both Dostum and Noor's offices denied that Dostum was even on the plane, saying that he was still in Ankara, and that really, who was in that plane were just special guests of Mohammad Atta Noor. So, I know that's a lot I've just sort of thrown at you. But just to we'll backtrack a little bit and kind of get into, and just sort of reiterate all of that again. We have the vice president of Afghanistan. He's still the vice president. Okay, they haven't removed him. He's not on leave. He's not, there's not like an acting vice president. The current vice president of Afghanistan, former warlord and power broker, Abdul Rashid Dostum, most likely did leave his self-imposed exile in Ankara, tried to fly back to Afghanistan, and was refused to land, and then had to go to Turkmenistan and then probably back to Ankara. And it's important to note that while they're claiming he's still in Turkey, no one really knows where the vice president is. So, we're missing the vice president, who's being accused of abducting, beating, and then raping a opposition, a political rival of his. And while this is all going on, Donald Trump was talking about privatizing the war in Afghanistan. Why is this so important? Why should we be talking about this? Why am I going to spend a whole hour talking about this on the show? Well, first off, this is a pretty crazy scenario in general. I mean, like I said, the vice president accused of some pretty heinous crimes, in exile, flying around. He's creating very powerful new political alliances. President Ghani is extremely weak. He is, pretty ineffectual. He's basically, as I said, was only elected because he had the backing of people like Dostum. Again, he's another one of these sort of, he's very much like a Hamid Karzai, if Hamid Karzai actually had not even backbone. Hamid Karzai would, take suitcases of money from the CIA, but he would at least denounce the CIA publicly. He would at least say that, okay, well, I might be horrible and corrupt, but they really shouldn't be droning wedding parties and things. And I think Hamid Karzai genuinely meant that, but while of course being ultra corrupt. President Ghani doesn't even do that. President Ghani takes the CIA's money and then parrots the CIA talking points. So people really see through President Ghani. When you have the vice president forming a powerful political alliance that could really, do something. And again, Mohammad Atta Noor, Mohammad Mahik, General Dostum have huge militias, basically armies at their disposal. They've got thousands of fighters. They've got seemingly endless supplies of cash and money. They've got connections all over Afghanistan. So there's quite a lot that these two guys could get away with. And quite a lot that they could do in terms of pressuring the government. So again, why is this important? Well, the first thing is, could we be leading towards some sort of a civil war scenario in Afghanistan right now? I think that's a little bit alarmist. I wouldn't go quite so far as to say that civil war is going to take place. But again, let's be honest. Ghani has no real political base or political support outside of essentially NATO and the U.S. And the sort of phony international organizations, things like the UN and the EU and, all of these sorts of organizations, of course, back Ghani, but they don't really have any power in Afghanistan either. So I don't think that I think a civil war breaking out is a little crazy, but what if Dostum, instead of, trying to fly back, what if he lands, next time he lands in Turkmenistan and he crosses over into the border, into Afghanistan? What happens? What happens if he meets up with Mohammad Atta Noor, he gets all of his fighters together, he gets all their fighters together, and, they sort of set up a base of operations in northern Afghanistan. What happens? What happens if that goes forward and then the court system in Afghanistan deems that, he's guilty and needs to stand trial? There's no way that Dostum is going to, go to Kabul and stand trial. There's no way he's going to go to Kabul, at all. And he's been, very much, opposed to being in Kabul. And again, Ghani has adopted the nickname of Hamid Karzai in that he's the mayor of Kabul. That's essentially his, his support base and the extent of his influence and power is in Kabul. So civil war, I'm not sure, but you could start to see fighting. If the Afghan army attempts to arrest General Dostum, I don't believe that his bodyguards, his soldiers, his loyal fighters who have been with him, some of them, since the 80s, during the Afghan-Soviet war, they're not just going to let that happen. So now you have the possibility of the vice president getting into some sort of a armed fight with the national Afghan army. Now, whatever outcome legally happens, okay, if he's found guilty, if he's found innocent, it doesn't matter, because there will be parties that are upset. If he's found innocent, then you're going to have Ishchi's supporters getting upset. He's got fighters. He's got access to guns, to arms, to money. He's going to be upset. Is he going to retaliate? If Dostum is found guilty, they're definitely, and of course this is all, according to Dostum, this is all political. There's nothing to this. This is all bullshit. Even though there's no doubt that he did abduct this man in broad daylight. Okay? So it's not, it's not just all political, as Dostum would have you think. And then, what about Ghani? He continues to isolate himself politically, okay? If he really truly just becomes the mayor of Kabul and he has no influence, and this goes all the way back to the beginning why this is important, what does Donald Trump do? Okay? What does Donald Trump do? Now, this is a man who really has said next to nothing of any substance on Afghanistan other than, we've been there too long, I don't want to be there anymore, the war would have been better if I had been involved, but I wasn't, but we're gonna get out of there, there's no problem. We're gonna get out of there, right? Well, before we get out of there, what happens if the situation begins to unravel even faster? And you do have some sort of situation where there's a confrontation between the vice president and the president of Afghanistan. Does the U.S. come to the rescue? Does the U.S. have an obligation to our ally, an asset, President Ghani? And these are serious questions because we don't know. There's no we have no idea of what or how Donald Trump will act in a situation like that. Mainly because, I mean, there's no policy, there's no stance that we know of with this guy vis-a-vis, say, Afghanistan. Now, keep in mind, too, that while this is going on, the Taliban is continuing to mount attacks and bombings all over the country. Okay? Just today, the Taliban has taken control of Jani-Khel district, which is in Paktia province, which is in the southeast, near to Pakistan. Just a few days ago, I believe it was over the weekend on Sunday, they took control of the district center of Kholistan in Faryab province, which is in the north. I've spoken about before on the Porkins Great Game. The Taliban took control of Darzab district in northern Jawzan province. Again, Jawzan, we were speaking about that previously. There was just a bombing yesterday on Monday the 24th in Kabul that killed 30 people. The Taliban claimed responsibility for that, saying that they were targeting intelligence operatives. And back in May 31st, there was a truck bomb in the diplomatic quarter of Kabul that killed 150 people. And this one is actually quite mysterious, this particular bombing, because the Taliban issued multiple denials. And for those who don't know or aren't familiar, the Taliban does not, at least now, like to target like soft targets or kill innocent civilians. That's not their MO so much. They're savvy enough with the media and politically to know that this is not a good idea, that it's bad for business. So they do tend to not target, open air markets or schools or things like that. The Taliban is much more about targeting, say, a police station, military targets, intelligence targets, things like that. Like when they take over control of these districts and cities in various provinces, usually what they're doing, this means that they're going in, they're attacking the police station, they're attacking the local army base, and they're taking that over. And it doesn't necessarily last all that long. The many times the Taliban will just sort of, their sort of classic, tactic, they'll just sort of fade into the background and disappear. Or eventually the army will come, or more likely the U.S. will send a bunch of fighter jets and they'll start dropping bombs, and that will make the Taliban flee. But the point is that they're able to take control over these provinces. And in the north, that's a big deal because generally their stronghold is in the south, like places like Helmand, and then, in the east, on the border of the tribal region with Pakistan. So back to this truck bombing in May, the Taliban issued lots of denials, and ISIS, which claims responsibility for literally everything, was completely silent. So, there's a real possibility that there's some other force at play. I have no idea. I mean, it's completely speculative. So, don't hold me to this, or don't quote me on this in court, but you've got the possibility of there being some other factor at play here. Okay? So Afghanistan is falling apart faster and faster every day. It does seem to be getting worse. I hate to be so pessimistic, but Afghanistan does not look like it's in the best of shape right now. And this is very worrying because we've become so invested in Afghanistan. I just saw there was an article a day or two ago, I believe it was in the Daily Beast, I think. And they're reporting on, again, this Trump's plans for Afghanistan and stuff. I mean, we've spent billions, hundreds of billions of dollars we've been there for more than a decade with really nothing to show, but the Pentagon doesn't want to leave anytime soon. That seems to be their general stance, that if we just put a little bit more money and a little bit more effort into that, we can somehow win this conflict. And let's be totally honest, we're not leaving anytime soon. It does seem more and more likely that more troops will be sent to Afghanistan, and if not troops, military contractors, mercenaries, things like that will be sent in their place. You know, again, the Eric Prince and Stephen Feinberg of DynCorp, they're you know, that's not going to end the war any faster either. But you know, what happens, as I said, when all of the shit hits the fan? What does Donald Trump do? Okay? Does he turn his tail and run? Does he commit more ground troops? Do we help prop up President Ghani? Do we instead send a CIA jet and get him out of the country? These are all real questions, and these will all have a real impact and influence later on down the line. But we've become so obsessed with one-upsmanship and with the sort of political game of, you know, the left versus the right, and you're either with us or against us, and all those things have become sort of superseded. They become more important. And honestly, who Jared Kushner is meeting with, you know, or what Russian official was paying bribes and stuff to Trump is sort of irrelevant when you've got the possibility of plunging Afghanistan into some sort of, if not outright civil war, some sort of, you know, factional war or an internal civil war amongst the political class. And this is really quite terrifying. First of all, you've got how many thousands of U.S. troops there, not to mention mercenaries, foreign mercenaries all over the country, plus NATO forces, plus, you know, there's other countries at bases there, spies all over the place. You've got what amounts to billions, if not trillions of dollars poured down the drain into Afghanistan. There's so much invested in this. And these sorts of questions and things are truly important. What do we do if the Taliban suddenly sees that there's a vacuum with Dostum and President Ghani fighting, and they decide to up the ante? What happens? And this is then of course the question also is how is this exploited by Donald Trump? Who sees virtually nothing but political scandals back at home domestically. And again, you know, what did Bill Clinton do when he was faced with political scandals involving Monica Lewinsky? He decided to, you know, wipe out targets in Sudan. I think this was the pharmaceutical company that was a bomb factory and whatnot. But this is a classic tactic. All foreign leaders do this. When, you know, there's a big domestic problem, you either bomb another country or you have a bomb go off in your country to distract from it. But I think, you know, Afghanistan is a perfect example. It's so far off, it's so far removed from the political discussion here. You know, it's only really discussion insofar as, well, how do we get out of it, or how do we sort of push this off either for the next guy, or we'll just hand it over to Eric Prince and Blackwater. We'll let him figure it out later. This is really serious, you know, and again, we have no real idea of what Donald Trump might do. If, let's say again, a scenario where Dostum returns, there's fighting going on, the Taliban suddenly takes over an entire province or something like that. Or they start, you know, large scale bombings all over. What if they hit a U.S. embassy? Or they, attack a NATO base or something like that? I mean, there's a million sorts of scenarios that could unfold. And we really have no sense of how the U.S. would act. how, because Rex Tillerson might be saying, restraint and such, but Donald Trump might be, well, we gotta drop another Moab. I mean, keep that in mind too. This guy dropped the mother of all bombs, as it's known, on some, who knows if it was a town, he said it was these underground tunnels, but even if he was dropping it, he still dropped it, to, show how much of a man he was. If Afghanistan is near collapse, and I don't want to make it sound like it's about to, but there is certainly, Dostum is too powerful to just sort of ignore. And, here's the thing too. Has anyone even heard this being brought up in a White House press briefing, or a State Department briefing? There's no real, I read, the other day, and you can check it out, the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan, their ambassador the ambassador to, Afghanistan from the U.S. has put out a statement, saying we, totally support the rule of law, and we believe that, whatever crimes have been alleged against Vice President Dostum, that this should be taken seriously, blah, blah, blah. But, again, can you imagine the vice president of any other ally of ours being accused of kidnapping a man, a political rival, beating him publicly, and then ordering him to be raped with the barrel of a rifle? Okay? And then he flees to another ostensible ally, Turkey, and he's just hanging out there. Okay? This is a serious question. This is a serious scandal, and this has serious consequences moving forward. Not least to mention the fact that the Taliban seems to be increasing its force and its influence all over the country. So, again, I know I feel like I might be kind of repeating myself and going back there, but I do hope that this is sinking in, that these are really important geopolitical questions that have completely been, they've taken not even a back seat. They're not even in the car anymore. They've been left on the side of the road. And there's no one in the administration or, amongst his supporters or in any real media that's covering this beyond, just sort of reporting, yeah, this is happening, that's happening. And the case against Dostum is moving along. And the first legal session is expected to be happening very soon. So again, what if he gets indicted? What happens? It's doubtful. I doubt he's ever going to see the inside of a prison. But, I don't think that he's just going to sit back and let this happen. This is not a man. This is a man whose ego is massive. Okay, and takes any kind of slight against him very seriously. And this guy has been in power for so long. He knows where the bodies are buried. So he's definitely not just going to, he's not going to just piss off to Turkey and just kind of leave it like that. Especially when he's developing a very powerful political bloc that could really seriously challenge President Ghani. And I think it's very disturbing. Now, this isn't to say that, Donald Trump should be backing President Ghani, should be intervening immediately and, arresting Dostum or making him apologize or backing Dostum against Ghani. That's not to say that should be going on, but just to keep in mind that you have this jackass in the White House who has no concept of geopolitics or the complexities of the geopolitical landscape. I would bet you, my apartment that this guy doesn't even know who the vice president of Afghanistan is, let alone that he's been accused of these crimes, let alone that he's, flying around Turkey and Turkmenistan trying to land back in the country. So how does he act, What does he do under pressure in a situation like this? God only knows. but it's probably not going to be all that good. And, at that point, who really gives a fuck what happened in some Russian meeting with his idiot son and Jared Kushner? It's not going to be all that important ultimately. But again, all I'm trying to say here with this is that there are really serious geopolitical events taking place and unfolding at a very fast pace. They're very fluid too. The situation in Afghanistan could unravel more and more. And we really don't know what this is going to mean for us. And we should be concerned, again, because I said, who knows if Donald Trump will exploit this situation. Any president could exploit this, but a president that's under tremendous pressure domestically could use this as an example. Again, what if, here's a scenario, we get him saying, I'm going to go after Dostum because he's a bad guy. Okay. And then, that just becomes a policy. Now I doubt that, he would be able to sort of push that with his generals, but it's still on the table. It's still on the cards. I mean, even if he doesn't, the mere fact that he's saying, he's sending these mixed messages and whatnot, this is all really important. And again, we're so intertwined with Afghanistan that I don't think we're just going to, let this go on, and just sort of let this happen. There will be some sort of response, and it's not going to be the one that, and this is the thing too, I don't think it's going to be one that his supporters are going to be all that happy with. What does Mike Cernovich, what does Alex Jones have to say on this? Do they have an opinion? Do they have a stance as to what we should be doing with, Vice President Dostum or with this ongoing political crisis? I don't know. But maybe I'll leave it there with Afghanistan. And, we are coming up on the break. But I'll kind of, we'll start talking about, the next topic, and that's Pakistan, which is, of course, always so intertwined with both the U.S. and with Afghanistan. And Pakistan is such a power broker in the region, and is probably the dominant, external force, in South Asia. I mean, you can make that claim with India, but when it comes to Afghanistan, obviously Pakistan is a serious player and, an arbiter in whatever goes on there. And again, too, Pakistan is extremely intertwined and connected with America. They're our big ally. They're our enforcer in South Asia. They're the proxy force with, which we, helped, foster the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, back in the 80s and 90s. We were handing Pakistan millions and millions of dollars and looking the other way, or probably, looking and nodding with approval, while they helped build up groups like the Taliban. This group that we're supposed to be fighting. And you know what? Actually, quickly, let me just jump back, because, here's another thing too. Trump and his people, there's these plans for Afghanistan and whatnot, but it's never peace. It's never the possibility of letting, say, Pakistan and China lead some sort of peace talks, which are ongoing, which the Taliban are participating in. Now, I understand the Taliban is not like the most reliable partner in this, and you can look no further than the current emir of the Taliban, Habibatullah. I know I'm probably mispronouncing that. His son was just killed himself in a suicide attack. So obviously, if the emir of the Taliban is sacrificing his son in a suicide attack, peace is probably not top of his priority list. But ultimately, the Taliban don't want to be fighting forever. They only see these sorts of attacks and things as the only kind of real way to exercise any power and to get people to the negotiating table. Because keep in mind, again, the peace talks were moving forward at a fairly good pace until the U.S. and Afghanistan decided to scuttle these peace talks about a year ago, when they, did things like reveal the death of Mullah Omar and then assassinate, the emir that took on after Mullah Omar, and they've done a lot of things to screw up the peace talks. The factions within the Taliban that think peace is silly have been able to exercise more influence over the other ones. So they've been able to themselves derail these peace talks. But there's never anything like that. There's never a question of, instead of sending in all these mercenaries like Donald Trump, or at least what Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner want to do, there's never an idea, maybe we should or we should give peace a chance, he seems to kind of like that idea in Syria, right? With, the rhetoric that's sort of coming out of the White House, or at least coming from his supporters, the way they interpret his actions. But when it comes to Afghanistan, that's never on the table. So, and we would need Pakistan to help come to some sort of a political settlement in Afghanistan. That would just have to happen. But the chances of that happening seem farther and farther away, because Pakistan is in the midst of its own huge political scandal, one that will most likely take down the current Prime Minister, Nawaz Sharif. And this is a scandal that stems all the way back to the Panama Papers. And I'm pretty sure listeners will remember the Panama Papers. They were I think it came out in 2015, 2016. That was this huge document dump that, was very popular for a week in the mainstream media. It revealed, Mosa Fonseca, this, shady firm bank down in Panama, that was basically hiding money and laundering money for all sorts of corrupt leaders all over the world. Some of them were our allies, like Pakistan, or the President Aliyev in Azerbaijan. Many of them were enemies of ours. The Russians were mentioned, and I think Assad was mentioned. Some African dictators that we pretend not to like, but we really work with them. They were all mentioned in the Panama Papers, and then they kind of disappeared. It was like, as I said, it was like hot shit for a hot minute, and then it just sort of faded into the background, and not much was really made of the Panama Papers since then. And there was a lot of poo-pooing by many people in the alternative media, and I might even kind of put myself in that camp as well. I didn't think there was much to it. I didn't think that much would really come out of the Panama Papers. There was people spent a little bit of time trying to figure out, who released them and what's the point. And I think it's probably clear now that whoever did release, that this was probably something of a controlled release, that they wanted this sort of information out there. And it's no coincidence that there are no Americans named. And I don't think that's just because a lot of Americans use places like Delaware and North Dakota to hide money, which are big money laundering hubs. I think this is much more because they didn't want any Americans there. But if we can remember back to the Panama Papers, it is actually now having a tremendous influence, and will be continuing how the Panama Papers are influencing the world, how they are about to take down the Prime Minister of Pakistan in the second hour. So stay tuned.
mostly narcotics.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me. American Freedom Radio, Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
Nicotine, alcohol, good drugs. Coincidentally, tax drugs. Ooh, how does this work? Thank God they're taxing alcohol, man. It means we got those good roads we can drive on. Because I'll tell you something, I'll be honest, man. If I were going to legalize a drug, it sure wouldn't have been alcohol. Sorry, there's better drugs and better drugs for you. That's a fact. Pot is a better drug than alcohol. Fact. Stop your internal dialogue. But Bill, alcohol's shut up! You're wrong. Get over it. I'll prove it to you, man. You're at a ball game or a concert and someone's really violent and aggressive and obnoxious. Are they drunk or are they smoking pot? They're drunk. I have never seen people on pot get in a fight, because it is impossible. Hey, buddy. Hey, what? Hey. End of argument.
Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
What about show business? Show business, completely dishonest, corrupt, and full of shit, but in a nice way. Plenty of expensive drugs and perverted sex. If you're going to be full of shit, might as well enjoy your work. Then you have the media. Not just the news media, let's include them all. The media are almost literally exploding with bullshit, because they're located right at the crossroads of all the other bullshit. The media are made up of equal parts advertising, politics, business, public relations, and show business. These people are sitting right at bullshit junction. There's enough bullshit in the media for Texas to open a branch office. And you still have enough left over to start 2 law firms and a Christian bookstore.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs and artillery batteries not included.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything
geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond. If you are just joining me right now in the second hour, I have been doing a solo show today for you all about geopolitics and particularly South Asia, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. And we're going to be continuing this by talking about Pakistan. But before we get to that, just want to remind everyone out there that here at AFR, we are in a little bit of a financial need for some new equipment. We've lost, I believe, in 2 of our backup computers, just sort of crapped out on us. So, we of course will stay on the air, no matter what. I mean, we'll still be here. Danny always finds a way, but we really could use some financial help. So if you can help us out, please do. As I said in the first hour, you can always go to the AFR PayPal, and you can make a one-time donation. You can become a monthly donator through PayPal. And of course, we have Patreon too, so you can always become a subscriber on Patreon for AFR for as little as $1 a month. Again, if everybody that listened to American Freedom Radio just gave $1, God, we could do so much. You could probably send me out to Afghanistan, to do some on the ground reporting, if everyone, gave us $1 that listens to AFR. So again, if you appreciate AFR, if you appreciate hearing about things like me talking about geopolitics, then please do help support us out, because we are in need of some financial support. And of course, you do get the luxury of just one commercial break. That's like unheard of in radio in general, and internet radio and terrestrial radio. One commercial break is amazing, and I know you all appreciate that and you like that. So again, if you want us to continue like that, please do help us out in any way you can. But getting back to my original talk, and I hope I know I was sort of kind of rambling and going off in the first hour. And as you can tell, it has been a little bit of a, long time since I've done a solo show. And I just, maybe I was getting a little bogged down in some of my notes and things like that. But hopefully, it'll be a little bit better. It won't be quite so all over the place in the second hour. But, as I was saying, I was talking about the Panama Papers, this leak that, kind of came and went. And as I said, everybody, including myself to a degree, kind of poo-pooed it and didn't think it would have much impact. But it seems as if it is about to completely stir up the political situation in Pakistan. Again, a very close ally of the U.S., close ally in the war on terror, a close ally in the flow of jihadi mercenaries, drugs, all sorts of NATO operations. Very important, Pakistan. And of course, right next door to Afghanistan, which we were talking about in the first hour. As I said, it's the Panama Papers are about to unravel that whole situation. So quickly, to go all the way back, in the past 70 years, no prime minister in Pakistan has completed a full 5-year term. This is one of those sort of amazing, unbelievable facts about Pakistan. No prime minister has ever completed a full 5-year term in the past 70 years. It's either ended in dismissal, resignation, assassination, or overthrow by military coup. Now, the current prime minister, Nawaz Sharif, has been ousted twice before. Okay? And it looks like he's set to make it 3. And Nawaz Sharif is been around forever in Pakistani politics. He was, he's very close to actually finishing a full 5-year term. So a record in Pakistani politics. But it looks as if he's about to be ousted. Now, quickly, I'll just I'll give you a little bit more of a crash course in Pakistani political parties and things like that. So there are many political parties in Pakistan. Like most countries in the world, there are multiple political parties that all have, to some degree, a voice in parliament and things like that. But there are like three major political parties, three big parties that I would point to and look to as being extremely important. So the first one is the Pakistan People's Party, the PPP. Now this was founded back by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and the Bhutto dynasty is extremely powerful. People should know of Benazir Bhutto, who was the first female prime minister of Pakistan, who was assassinated shot at and bombed, again, broad daylight in a big parade. Her husband, Zardari, was prime minister, of Pakistan for quite some time as well. And the PPP is, as a very powerful. Ali Bhutto founded this all the way back, I want to say just sort of in the aftermath, like in the 50s, after the partition of Pakistan and India. Now then there's also the Pakistan Muslim League, which is sort of splintered off, and it's now the main force of the Pakistan Muslim League is known as the PMLN, and the N is for Nawaz Group or Nawaz Sharif. So the Pakistan Muslim League is the political party of Nawaz Sharif, or it's the political party that Nawaz Sharif has sort of commanded. As I said, Nawaz Sharif has been prime minister twice before in Pakistan, and those are like the two big kind of parties that have vied for power. And then to a lesser extent, you have the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which is I guess you call it like third wave political party. So imagine it's sort of like, if Bill Clinton and Tony Blair had a political party in Pakistan, it would be the PTI. And this is run by Imran Khan, who's a very world famous cricket player. He was I think he was the highest paid cricket player in the 1980s. Sort of lived this playboy lifestyle, in London, and, you had these sort of villas, in the mountains in Pakistan and stuff like that. But, he was this sort of, international jet setter, cricket player, and then, later returned to become this irritating crusader for, the Pakistani neoliberals, essentially. But those are the three main political parties. And then, to a lesser extent, there are some powerful, like right-wing conservative, Islamic parties, that do hold some sway and things like that. But for the purposes of this, and as a crash course on Pakistani politics, we're really looking at the PPP, the PTI, and the PMLN. So, what's going on in Pakistan right now? Why should we be concerned with it, or why should we be looking at it? So, as I said, Nawaz Sharif is under investigation right now, because back when the Panama Papers were released, two of Sharif's sons and his daughter, Maryam Nawaz, who was is seen by many as his political heir. She was going to take over after her father. Which again, just a, side note, it's fascinating to me. We go on and on about how barbaric, Muslims are and the Pakistanis and stuff like that. They've had more women in higher office than we have. And there's again, for this backward, stupid, barbaric nation, Nawaz's daughter, was seen as a political leader. She was seen as smart enough to take over. It wasn't his two idiot sons, So, just interesting to note that. Maybe, I don't even know, maybe some sort of parallels to Donald Trump, and his two moronic sons and his daughter, who is also sort of his political heir. Anyway, his two sons and his daughter were shown to have own apartments in London that were owned through these two offshore companies in the British Virgin Islands. And this was, it was obviously very shady, and they had not really revealed this. This is all coming from the Panama Papers as well, so we know that they were using this very shady firm down in Panama to help kind of launder this or cover this up. Now, while Nawaz is not named, his political opponents, including Imran Khan, who hates Nawaz Sharif, filed lawsuits demanding that he explain this. And Imran Khan really kind of prompted the Supreme Court to take up the case in November. And the Supreme Court of Pakistan did issue a 10-volume report where it accused Sharif of lying to investigators about overseas assets. So, again, he's not named initially in the Panama Papers, but as they begin investigating his family, they see that he was lying about overseas assets, and he was concealing an offshore company that he owned in Dubai. Now, really important to this, and very interesting, is that Maryam Nawaz was also found by the Supreme Court to have falsified documents dating back to February 2006 that showed that she was not she had falsified documents to make it appear that she wasn't the owner of these two companies in the Virgin Islands, but merely a trustee, when in fact she was an owner along with her brothers. And it's sort of an interesting little tidbit as to how this came to be, but it was a British forensic company that told investigators that the documents were written in Calibri, which is a Microsoft font that was not commercially available until 2007, so a year after these documents were dated. So when this became public knowledge, it was trending in Pakistan on Twitter was hashtag Fontgate. And if you look up Fontgate or Panama Gate, that it is directly related to, it's talking about Nawaz Sharif in Pakistan. Now, the evidence was so bad that the case moved forward after this initial judicial review. And it really doesn't look all that good. Now, as of today, the Supreme Court has reserved its verdict, so they're figuring it out. But but closing arguments, all that sort of stuff is over, and it really doesn't look all that good. So for instance, the leader of the PPP, Rashid Shah, is saying that the verdict will be announced very soon, and that it's in Sharif's best interest to just resign right now. There's other calls from opposition political figures for Nawaz Sharif to resign. And some of them are saying no, he should face, whatever, prison and this, that. And I don't know entirely, but I think basically what will happen is that they could remove him from office. I don't know if Nawaz Sharif or his sons or his daughter could be put in jail, but he could be removed from office, which is essentially, just pretty bad anyway. Now, Sharif believes that this is being orchestrated by the military, which has long been the real power source in Pakistan. And again, the military, they do hold all the cards. It's very typical if the military doesn't like the prime minister, the president, or who's ever in power in Pakistan, for them to be overthrown. And again, the last time that Nawaz Sharif was prime minister, he was ousted in a military coup back in 1999, which led to General Pervez Musharraf becoming the supreme ruler, essentially. He had like a really weird title when he was, but it was basically, it was a military dictatorship under Musharraf. And Musharraf, of course, close ally of George Bush and Dick Cheney, integral in the war on terror, before and after 9/11. He's alleged to have been involved in the assassination of Benazir Bhutto. And side note, Musharraf has been in the shadows in Dubai, where he's again also been in self-imposed exile. And this is after he was in exile, then returned to Pakistan, then was arrested, then released, and he went back into exile. But Musharraf has wanted to return and has lately been giving all sorts of interviews to Pakistani TV, Pakistani radio, and things like Geo TV and things like that. Giving his 2 cents on all of this. And to Nawaz's credit, 2 of the 6 members of the investigation team looking into this are connected to the military. And it's not at all bizarre to think that the military does want to overthrow or get rid of Sharif. They've never really liked him. And as I said, pretty much everyone is calling for Sharif to resign ahead of the legal judgment. There are even many within the Pakistani Muslim League that are rumored to be urging him to resign. There are some even suggesting that there might be a splintering of the party, that the party itself might break down. There might be different factions. There's talk that the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz group might reunite with the Pakistan Muslim League. The Interior Minister, Chaudhry Nisar Ali Khan, there are again rumors and speculation that he might be sort of vying for power, that he has been pushing for Sharif to resign and get out of there, and that he might take over. Now, Nawaz has repeatedly said he's not going to resign. And yesterday his spokesman reiterated this, and he had a great sort of PR line. He said there's only because he keeps getting all these questions like who's next in line, who's on the short list, and who might take over. And he said there's only 3 people that are going to take over: Nawaz. So very adamant that this is not going to happen. But as I said, this is a really big political scandal. This is sort of akin. I wasn't even thinking about it until I was just talking about it. But this is like the scandal that so many Americans want with Donald Trump, where he's got 2 sons and a daughter who are involved in very shady business deals. They've got offshore companies in the British Virgin Islands, and they're owning all these properties in London. So it's a real estate market. It's all legal. It's a way of hiding money, which is, of course, this is what a lot of rich, corrupt people do. And you got these leaked documents that are taking them all down. So and again, this is this sort of corruption running in the family, very reminiscent of say a Donald Trump type scenario. So with that in mind, we've also got a massive car bombing in Lahore, major city in Pakistan. It killed 26 people, and it was just 100 meters from the office of Shahbaz Sharif, who is the chief minister of Punjab province, which is the most important province in Pakistan, politically and economically, and he's the brother of Nawaz Sharif. And again, there were calls that Shahbaz Sharif might take over, which is not, it would take a little bit more than that. He would still have to go through some sort of a formal election process, but that might happen. And after this bombing, when I was on Twitter, I saw quite a few Pakistani Twitter users claiming that the bombing was actually being carried out on the orders of Nawaz Sharif. And they were, very, adamant about this, very straightforward, that this was Sharif trying to shift attention away from his political scandals. And this is, is not surprising. The Pakistani general public, they're always portrayed, and this is like all, Muslims, like, in the Arab world, and in, around the world, like places like Pakistan or Afghanistan, they're all conspiracy theorists. They all think that there's some ulterior motive, and that's a pejorative that, a lot of Western, diplomats and intelligence officials will always, all the Pakistanis, everything is a conspiracy. Well, in terms of their history and in terms of the people actually running the government, like the military and the ISI, it is true a lot of the time. And it is true that, people like Musharraf did this all the time. They would have these bombings, happen in Lahore or Karachi, or somewhere else, and it would sort of shift pressure away. And interesting though that it was so close to his brother, to his offices. Now the Pakistani Taliban did claim responsibility for the bombing, and the Pakistani Taliban is essentially just an auxiliary force of Pakistani intelligence, of the ISI. So I'm not sure how much credence we can give to the claims that Nawaz was ordering this bombing. I don't see why the Pakistani Taliban would do something to help him. And I don't see the Pakistani Taliban really doing something without the ISI and the military telling them to. For the most part, they, while the ISI might have lost control over the Afghan Taliban, or at least certain factions of it, they still appear to be pretty firmly in control of the Pakistani Taliban. So I don't know about that. Now, maybe it is. Maybe it was, designed as a distraction or something like that. It certainly was a huge, terrorist attack. It certainly gained a lot of media coverage. Interestingly too, I just spoke before about, the Interior Minister, Nizar Ali Khan, or known as Nizar, in Pakistan, who has been one of these figures that has been, put out there as possibly taking over. Well, he was supposed to give a press conference yesterday, where it was believed that he was going to formally, ask for Sharif to resign. And this was a rumor. Everyone was pretty convinced that this was going to happen. Then this bombing took place, and instead Nizar just went out, and basically just, condemned the bombing in Lahore, didn't take any questions and left. It was like a 2-minute press conference. So, I don't know, sometimes it's easy to read into these sorts of things, but that is interesting in and of itself, that, he's supposed to ask for Sharif to resign, then this bomb happens in Lahore, and he basically just condemns it, and then he walks away. So I don't know, purely speculation. There's nothing we can say one way or the other. But again, just as a template, as something to keep in mind, and again, geopolitics, all these things are very, related, and these similarities between this and, some aspects of Donald Trump, it is interesting that many people jump to the conclusion that, well, of course, this is done to distract from the domestic political situation. But, what's going on right now? There's no verdict. Nawaz Sharif, I'm not resigning. No one's taking over for me. We're gonna beat this thing, I guess. And oddly, he's just flown today to the Maldives, which is a tiny island or archipelago down in the South Pacific. It's mostly known for its resorts and beaches. People might know the Maldives from that documentary, The Island President, which is about the then president of the Maldives and his attempts to warn the world about global warming and stuff. And he was shortly after that was ousted in a military coup. And currently, right now in the Maldives, the army has just shut down parliament the other day, and they were out in force on the streets. And the Maldives have gone through a series of violent coups throughout their history, and the military is again, like back, is sort of the real power source in the Maldives. And this is where Nawaz Sharif is going right now for, I believe it's for a couple of days. I think it's from today on the 25th to the 27th. And he's there for, Maldives Independence Day, which is great when you've got the military, shutting down parliament. And it's over, again, it's over like parliament trying to pass some sort of law, I believe, that would limit the president, who's very close to the military. But you're celebrating Independence Day while the military is in power. And this to me was interesting. Just strictly from, we're trying to kind of piece this together, figure out what's going on, is why would you leave in the midst of a big political crisis? Because that seems like the perfect time, of course, for the military to go ahead with the coup. When the president is either out of the country or out of the capital. That's the perfect time. Now, perhaps the Pakistani military doesn't want to have another coup. They may not want the media attention. They may not want the political attention from this. Again, if the military does want to get rid of Nawaz, it does seem like most of the public has kind of turned on him. Even people within his own party have turned on him. It's sort of like there's really no way to salvage this. He did fuck up. His kids definitely fucked up. So, all the same though, you would think kind of crazy to leave and go to the Maldives, especially when the Maldives looks like, there's going to be a coup there or something. Now, according to Sharif and his camp, this is just to prove that it's not a big deal, that nothing bad is going to happen. I'm still the the prime minister. I'm still in control. I'm still the one in power. And, I'm off kind of, doing my thing. And there are going to be, formal talks between the Maldives and Pakistan while he's there. So again, for him, he's making the point that there are going to be formal talks because I'm still formally the prime minister. I'm still the one that's calling all the shots. But, again, he's there. We'll have to see what happens. And we're expecting to see something in the next couple of days, a verdict in this case. Now again, the Pakistani Supreme Court is notorious for taking its time. Usually in cases like this, both sides lawyer up for, a couple of years and they go back and forth and nothing, these cases never even come to trial. So in that respect, it is interesting that this went to trial and ended, and now they're figuring out what the judgment is going to be. But, so with that in mind, we're again left with some big questions here. How is this, why is this important? Why should we be caring about this? Well, for starters, Pakistan is such an important ally of the U.S. So whatever happens there will have an effect on us. How will this affect Afghanistan? Well, as I said, we have these peace talks. There are peace talks that are going on. They're mainly sort of chaired by China, but China is, of course, is a very close ally of Pakistan. They've always been close allies, and they sort of have this unshakable bond between the two of them. But are peace talks going to kind of take a back seat if the prime minister is about to be overthrown by a judicial coup? Probably, who cares? Control over the Taliban. Again, Now, I don't think that, the prime minister usually doesn't necessarily have, command control over groups like the Taliban. Much of that does have to do with groups like the military and the ISI, things like that. But still, the prime minister is still important. His influence over certain things is important, and we don't really know the full extent to which he might be exerting influence or at least advising or something like that. So we've got that. We've also got there's more and more of an influx of Afghan refugees coming into Pakistan. And they're coming from the east, but also from the north, again, where the Taliban continues to take over districts. I mean, many of these Central Asian countries are very can be very nationalistic or even xenophobic, and don't want Afghan refugees coming over the border. Pakistan has always sort of traditionally been a country where refugees come to from Afghanistan. So, there's an influx of Afghan refugees. How is that handled when the Prime Minister of Pakistan might be getting kicked out? It's a big deal. And then furthermore, what is the Trump administration's policy on Pakistan? Are we going to support this? What if Nawaz doesn't go quietly? How does Donald Trump respond to this? How does the White House respond to this? What's the stance? Now, I can tell you probably what the stance from the U.S. military is. Who gives a shit? The Prime Minister is really just sort of a figurehead for the Pakistani military in a lot of ways. But still. Is Donald Trump going to come out in favor of this guy? Is he just not going to say anything? Is he just going to kind of go along with whatever he's told? And these are important questions. These are, again, this isn't to say that we should be supporting Nawaz, we should be throwing Nawaz under the bus, we should be doing something, we should not be doing it. But it's still important. Whatever he says will have an impact. Okay, and this is a man who really can't control himself from tweeting or something like that. So what if he says something, stupid in a tweet about the Pakistani government, about Nawaz Sharif, about the similarities between him, Trump, and Nawaz are striking in a lot of ways. Again, Nawaz Sharif made a lot of money as a businessman. He's got this, his family, his two sons and his daughter who he was grooming to become prime minister. And they're taken down by some leaked documents that show all sorts of things like money laundering and buying up properties using shell companies in the Virgin Islands. This is all stuff that Donald Trump is guilty of on some level, or at least, is aware of. And you see him being taken down. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could see Donald Trump being like, oh, that's not fair. Oh, look at this, just punishing a good, honest man. So how does that, what does that mean? How do people deal with that? How does the Secretary of State handle that? How, the ambassador, U.S. ambassador to Pakistan? Again, I mean, we have no idea. I know I'm speculating quite a bit here, but these are all possible scenarios. And these are really important. Again, too, there's this idea amongst a lot of people, and it sort of went quiet for a little while, but I can see it popping up again sometime soon. But isn't Pakistan supposed to be this rogue nation? They've got nuclear weapons and stuff like that, and they there's more and more calls even from the U.S. and Afghanistan recently. Just had a sort of joint statement where they were talking about how Pakistan is harboring terrorists, and this is why Afghanistan is falling apart. It's because all the terrorists are in Pakistan, and they're the real threat. And that's something that politicians have, continually loved to glom onto. That the military is good, but it's factions within it, that are harboring these terrorists and whatnot. And it's a rogue state, it's got a nuclear weapon and it's all these things. Now, full disclosure, Pakistan is not a rogue state. It's not a failed state. It is what, Anatol Lieven would call a hard country. So, and it's a pretty mainstream book, but it is very good. Anatol Lieven's A Hard Country, which is all about Pakistan. Meaning that it's a hard country. It's not going to fall apart. It hasn't fallen apart in all of these years. It's still maintained, no one has gotten their hands on these nuclear weapons. They still have a functioning, government for the most part, a functioning economy. There is, culture in Pakistan. It is a hard country. It's not going anywhere. It's not falling apart, but it is important in the geopolitical chess game that goes on in South Asia and Central Asia. So all these things are really important. And again, I think that we should be, at times less focused on, the latest scandal that CNN has drudged up, or again, the latest scandal on Hillary Clinton. Who really gives a fuck, about what the newest one is now, Hillary Clinton is killed the guy in Lincoln Park or something like that. Or John Podesta, some crap like that. Who really, gives a shit when you've got, a political crisis in Pakistan that will affect an ongoing political crisis in Afghanistan. That's serious. The consequences of that are we're going to feel much more than whether or not John Podesta did such and such a thing. So, and I know I'm probably preaching to the choir with a lot of this, but, I'll also say too that, again, how these geopolitical problems could be exploited for domestic political gain here in the U.S. is important and is reason enough that we should be focusing on these countries, because we don't know how they could be exploited or how they could be used as justification for something on down the line. And again, don't forget that, in the background of all of this, is this plan to privatize Afghanistan with the Blackwater and DynCorp. And if that happens, then we really will have no clue what's going on in Afghanistan. There's so little information coming out right now about Afghanistan or Pakistan. You wouldn't know Pakistan existed really in the Western media, at least here. But can you imagine if Donald Trump gets his wish and privatizes Afghanistan? We'll hear nothing, There will be no reports about what's going on there. We'll have no real concept of how the political situation is going there, for instance. And I just read a great article today that I'll link up to on that very topic in the anti-media. Which great, another great, one of the few great alternative websites out there right now. But, Donald Trump just nominated, a Raytheon lobbyist, Mark Esper, to be Secretary of the Army. So it's all going to be these sort of defense contractors and mercenaries that are going to be in charge of running, Afghanistan and, God only knows, you can imagine a scenario where, it works well in Afghanistan. Why don't we try it in Pakistan? We just get that out of there, just send in those troops or something. You're any kind of situation. So, and again, I think this is an excellent, way of just sort of passing off these, geopolitical conflicts. We don't need to worry about it, And again, I'm not trying to say that we should be involved in these, but passing them off to mercenaries is not really, I don't think is really the best, option. Again, too, because we're still going to be paying them, we're still going to be footing the bill. It's not like we're just handing it over to Blackwater. who's going to pay for it. But anyway, I know I've been kind of rambling on about all these things, but I do hope that, at least when it comes to Afghanistan and Pakistan, there's stuff going on. There's really important political developments that are ongoing and that are unfolding. And there's almost like no way of really and this is, I think, what's so dangerous about Donald Trump. There's really no way of predicting how this is going to, furthermore, it's not even as if the Pentagon or the CIA or any of these groups have really made a statement or said anything on how they would handle a situation like this. So we really don't know what could happen here. And it's very easy for something like this to really get out of control. As I said, whatever happens in Afghanistan with Vice President Dostum, there's going to be an impact on American policy or on, America's role there. It could snowball. That's a perfect storm for something getting out of hand. I mean, here's an example. Something happens with Dostum, the Afghan army asks for assistance, and then we have U.S. warplanes bombing, Dostum. What happens then? Who knows? In Pakistan, too. I mean, what if Nawaz asks for help? And I think we should really, the Nawaz thing is particularly interesting, again, with the Panama Papers. How, because this was, again, something that, it's not going to mean anything. Well, it's about to take down the Prime Minister of Pakistan. I would say that that's somewhat significant. And I think it's interesting in that I do wonder if we might see more coming out of it. And, again, people were sort of trying to posit and figure out, what's going to happen, who was behind the Panama Papers. I don't know. I mean, I'd assume it had to be something like the CIA or some organization like that. But it's interesting, and it does make you wonder, was taking down Nawaz Sharif part of this? Because that, again, there's questions of, well, it's an ally of ours, sort of, right? Pakistan. But now you look and see, and he might be ousted, and, is it politically motivated? Of course it is. Everything is politically motivated in Pakistan. But still, very important, something to keep in mind. I hope people won't just sort of, lose sight of what's going on geopolitically because of identity politics and things like that, or to get, sucked into, the identity politics when it comes to geopolitics. So again, it's very easy to get, we should support everything that Russia does, because they're the good guys. Or we should support everything that the Pakistanis do because they're this guy or that guy. So it's something to keep in mind again too. And I know we've got about 15 minutes left. So I will mention just one more thing, because I think the stuff in South Asia, extremely important. It's really going to have a huge effect on our policy around the world, because we were going to have to make a response. There's going to have to be something. Again, if Sharif is ousted, there's going to have to be some sort of a response from the U.S. If Dostum returns to Afghanistan, we're going to get involved. So those are two very important things in a strategic location for NATO and Western forces in the U.S. Another one that again is also kind of just completely swept under the rug is what's going on right now in Israel and Palestine, between the two of them. Particularly the ongoing violence and tension at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Dome of the Rock. Some people will it's the Temple Mount. But this is in the old city of Jerusalem. This is where the Dome of the Rock is, and Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Wailing Wall is essentially connected to it on one side. So the two, the second most holy place in Islam and the holiest place in Judaism. And I hope people have been sort of following that, but there's been, ongoing clashes in and around Jerusalem over this. There was Israeli soldier that was killed in or just outside of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Then there were metal detectors put up, there's security cameras, then a bunch of Palestinians were killed. Then of course you had this Palestinian that broke into an Israeli family's home and killed 3 people. Then you get, Israeli soldiers raiding Palestinian hospitals and dragging off protesters to torture and whatnot. And, again, and I said this like months and months back that, the situation in Israel and in Palestine was reaching like critical mass, that, there was something in the works. Things were degrading so fast that something was going to happen in the near future. And I think, Netanyahu sees Donald Trump as definitely better than Obama, and it definitely will give Netanyahu a free hand to do things. So that's not good. This is also the traditional time where Israel, bombs Gaza or, bombs, Lebanon. They love to do that stuff in the summer. For a variety of reasons. But, what's going on there is getting worse and worse to a level where, listen, the last time there was an intifada was over, the entrance to the mosque, okay? And this was when Rabin, I believe, went into the compound where the Dome of the Rock is and whatnot. And that started an intifada. So, this is serious. There was just, an Israeli politician, that gave some horrific, speech. I'll link up to it, where he basically said that if the Palestinians aren't careful, there's going to be a third Nakba. Okay. And Nakba is what Palestinians refer to as the expulsion of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from Palestine to make Israel back in the late 40s, and also in 1967 during the 67 war, where there were more Palestinians turned into refugees. And this is odd for a variety of reasons. One is that Israel denies the Nakba ever existed, but apparently, if those Palestinians aren't careful and they don't keep their mouths shut and stop protesting, there's going to be a third Nakba. But that again, whatever happens there, we're going to have some sort of a response. We're going to have to say or do something, and most likely it's going to be pretty harsh. I can't really see Donald Trump saying, "Oh, you know what, Bibi, just lay off him, let him, it's okay, we'll work it out." And Jared Kushner, he's supposed to be our fucking Middle East envoy, or, he's supposed to be working on peace in the Middle East. I don't know what qualifies him that, other than that he's an Orthodox Jew. So, apparently that qualifies him as an expert on Israeli politics and the Palestinians. But anyway, again, that is reaching critical mass as well. And it's also one of these things like, do we have any idea what his stance is? Do we have any idea what the policy of the Trump administration is towards Israel and Palestine? And how will this again also affect Trump domestically? Is his base going to put up with this? Is his base going to just go along with this? Is this going to create any kind of a stir in the opposition to Trump? These are all really serious questions, and these are all big events. And again, I just hope that people aren't so distracted by the one-upsmanship of either proving that Donald Trump is a Russian agent or disproving that he's a Russian agent. Again, as much as I have spent time discussing it, I think there is something there. I'm now more and more leaning into the realm that this is really a big distraction. This is really much more about giving both sides something to bitch and moan about, while around the world we've got all of these actual serious conflicts happening more and more, and we really don't have an answer for how the administration is going to deal with it, and we're not thinking about, how is this going to affect us? I know it's difficult to effect change in foreign affairs and things like that, but we do have a voice, and I do hope that if and when something happens, people will actually exercise it, and they won't just sort of sit idly by and either twiddle their thumbs or try and think about, well, how are the Russians involved in this? Ugh. Big sip of water there. Anyway, I think I'll leave that there because I've basically just sort of repeated myself for 2 hours. So I hope that wasn't too bad. I hope you put up with it. Again, if you want to support my work, then you can always become a subscriber on Patreon. And a quick update on that, I'm going to be doing the bonus podcast, the subscriber podcast. It should be up. It will be up. That is a promise. It will be up before August, so it might be up, July 31st, which seems to be like my new style for that. But that's going to be dealing some more geopolitics. I'm going to be talking all about the 1-year anniversary of the failed coup in Turkey, and a lot has been going on in Turkey this past year. Even just in the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot going on in Turkey, and that again is a close ally of the U.S. and NATO, deeply involved, but they seem to be actually kind of going a little bit rogue, sort of a la like a Saddam or Noriega, one of these compliant puppets of the U.S. that attempt to act independently, and usually that doesn't go so well for them. I don't think we're going to invade Turkey, but again, what happens in Turkey will affect us, and there's a lot of pieces at play there. There's, of course, the U.S. support of Kurdish militias like the YPG in northern Syria that Turkey doesn't like. There's the Gulen movement, the CIA asset of ours. What's going to happen with that? Is anything going to happen with that? Lots of things going on. And again, don't know how Donald Trump is going to deal with it, but he's going to have to at some point. So I'm going to be talking about that. I'm also, I'll be, for anyone out there interested, when it comes to that, I'm going to be talking about some of the people, like, Sibel Edmonds, who is no longer talking, about Turkey and Erdogan, on her website, which, is interesting for a variety of reasons. And I'm not just, I'm not trying to stir up shit, but I think there's a lot of people that aren't, talking about Turkey again, because it's suddenly we're supposed to believe that Turkey is a good guy because they're against NATO. Therefore they must be good. So we should support everything that they're doing. Even when Erdogan is locking up anybody for being a Gulenist and shutting down newspapers and possibly moving certain forces closer and closer, certain Turkish forces or proxy forces closer to a confrontation with the United States. So I hope that's interesting to people. I hope people are still paying attention geopolitically, because there's a lot going on out there. So don't get so bogged down in identity politics and all that bullshit. And speaking of identity politics, I've got a really interesting episode in the works. Sort of it's on Turkey to a degree, but, talking about, this, what I think is a bizarre trend among so-called or leftists and self-professed Marxists that are all supporting the YPG and Turkish forces, and Kurdish forces, which are really just a proxy of the Pentagon. But that's an episode for a later date. So, thank you all for listening. I should have a guest, next week, so you don't have to listen to me ramble on for 2 hours, but thank you so much.
News and information you can trust. This is American Freedom Radio. Freedom, American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me in American Freedom Radio. Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.